you're in the rainforest. So if you really want to have that, which is what I was looking for, that sort of a soaking in the rainforest for 4 or 5 days and nights, where the only sound around you are the insects, the monkeys, the wind moving the trees, the birds calling.
Welcome to Experiences You Should Have, your how-to guide for amazing experiences. I'm Gail, your host, and today we are diving into the depths of the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica with Lynn Smith. Now, Lynn was also on Experiences You Should Have a few episodes ago on experiencing the drive to Milford Sound, as well as the boat ride in Milford Sound in New Zealand. If you haven't listened to that episode, I highly recommend it. Now, Lynn blends a love of independent adventure travel, history, and the natural world with over 40 years of experience as an award-winning writer, photographer, creative designer, and producer. Personally, I love how Lynn travels. She explores nature off the beaten path, which is my favorite way to get immersed into a new adventure. Now, this episode is about experiencing nature in the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica. The Osa Peninsula is wild. It's estimated to house 2.5% of the biodiversity of the entire world while covering less than 1,000% of its total surface area, earning it the title of the most biologically intense place on Earth, according to National Geographic. I personally haven't been there yet, but Lynn has, and she is here to tell all on how to experience the Osa Peninsula. And don't worry, I am taking notes because this sounds like an adventure to be had. All right, so we are here with Lynn, who is travel extraordinaire, and she was on the show for the New Zealand Milford Sound podcast episode. Highly recommend listening to that. But today, Lynn is going to be talking about traveling to the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica. Welcome, Lynn.
Welcome. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Gail.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I am so happy to have you here again. And I really hope we can continue doing more episodes because you are amazing. Um, so we are talking about the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica. So first off, can you just share what is the Osa Peninsula and where exactly it is?
The Osa Peninsula is on the far southwest corner, the Pacific corner of Costa Rica, way down the southwest tip of Costa Rica. So if you kind of do a Google Maps thing and you're looking at the country of Costa Rica, look way down on the lower left of the country, sort of where it hits Panama, the border of the country of Panama, and you'll see the Osa Peninsula. And it's almost an oval shape, looking place, but it's kind of out there. It's out there in the left field. It's right, bordering the Pacific Ocean. And when I say it's out there, it is out there. It's awesome.
Well, I love out there and I love off the beaten path experiences, as you know. And I'm just curious, like why you picked the Osa Peninsula to travel to.
It's interesting. It was our first trip to Costa Rica, and I'm one of those geographic nuts. I kind of really drill into a country and say, yeah, I've read a lot about that. And yeah, there's Tamarindo and there are the surfing beaches way up in the north end. And I also had quite a bit of insight with friends who have lived there, who are born there, who are native. So they were like, oh, your first trip, you might want to do this, that, and the other. And they were kind of the well-trod and perfectly wonderful because I've done them, tourist paths. But I went, no, I want to do something different. I really want to see the wildlife. I mean, where is it really wild? I mean, you can go to some of the wildlife parks that we've probably heard of, but and I don't know how I found it, but I would think I was Googling something like wildlife Costa Rica. And that's when I saw Osa Peninsula. And I think what jumped out at me was like a National Geo article. It wasn't like a travel and leisure or anything. It was just, oh my gosh, I started reading about the kind of wildlife, the frequency of wildlife encounters. And I thought that's what I love because I'm very attracted to traveling to tropical environments. I love rainforests. I like to have unscripted, so to speak, wildlife experiences, small groups of people, very intimate kinds of environments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't really travel. We don't travel the 3-star, 4-star, 5-star route because, frankly, it's just not something we can afford. But so we're not really backpacking. So it's like trying to find a sweet spot. Where is it wild? Where can we see Costa Rica? How can we combine like a super out there in the left field, someplace you haven't been, hard to get to, but stay in the rainforest with a little more typical, maybe a drive vacation. So I started out, if you have a 10-day calendar, and I split it in half. And I went, the first half we can go up here to the Arenal volcano area and the cloud forests around Monteverde, which is, a fairly common destination for many tourists once you fly into the country. And then I thought, I know, I'll save the best for last. We'll get down in the rainforest and we'll be staying in the primary rainforest. And then the
Mm-hmm.
more I looked at OSA, it was like, wow, this is like the last chunk of primary and secondary, but certainly primary rainforest in Costa Rica with the tallest trees. It's absolutely wild. It's like 700 acres. Most of it is a national park, the Corcovado National Park. So I started looking at that. So all in all, I kind of looked at my own personal check boxes. Is it out in the boonies? Check. Is it hard to get to? Check. Are there any 5-star places there? Well, there's one. Can we afford it? No. Is there something less than that? Yes. Is it backpacker, friendly? Well, yes, it can be, but that's not really what we want. How easy is it to get there? Not very, but you can do it in a day. And, I just started looking at that. So I think affordability, the amount of time it took to get there versus staying there was reasonable within our calendar. But more importantly, I read that National Geographic magazine, and when I found out, there are a couple little tidbits that I'll share without boring people to death, but it's like 2.5% of the biodiversity of the planet is right there on that 700 square mile peninsula. And
Uh-huh.
that only represents, and the peninsula itself is like less than 0.1% of its
Yeah.
total surface area. And so National Geographic, in this article that I read, had dubbed this area the most biologically intense place on Earth. And I thought, well, that certainly says something, but what does that mean? Am I going to get bitten up by insects or what? But, I started looking at it and it's like, well, there's nothing here. There's the rainforest. It goes right down to the Pacific coast, which big waves crashing up against the coast when the tide comes in. There's just no development over it on that Pacific side. Over on the base side of the peninsula, there's development. We'll talk about that Golfo Duce soon.
Mm-hmm.
But you start looking at the fact that this is a really old volcanic land with primary rainforests, some of the tallest trees, and the water, the waterfalls, the fresh water, the rivers that flow off of this peninsula and into the ocean. Think about it. That's like feeding frenzy for all kinds of animals,
Mm-hmm.
freshwater marine animals. So you start looking at that and you go, wow, this is like lush primary rainforest. And then you start looking at, wow, there's a lot of freshwater rivers. And they warn you about, don't go swimming in the rivers right here where the tide comes in because the saltwater crocodiles will eat you. And and then you start going like, wow, you can see almost every single, what is it? It's like 4 to 5 species of monkeys you can encounter right there on that peninsula. You can see all 4 species. There are 4, which we didn't know when we got there. We're like, oh, how many species of monkeys are there? Well, there's 4: the spider, the white-faced capuchin, the squirrel, and the howler monkeys. And there's like poison dart frogs. There's morpho butterflies. Let's see, anteaters, agoutis, if you know what those are, the sort of like big rat things. They're sort of like
Okay.
rabbits, really.
Right.
Quadrimundis, that's like the South American raccoon. They're so cute.
Huh.
And there's sloths. Oh my God, we saw sloths all over the place. Parrots
Are you
and
kidding me? Wait, you saw
toucans.
sloths everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, you can go out with a guide and they have spotting scopes because some of those trees are like well over 100 feet tall. Oh, there's one way up there. Can you see it? No, use your spotting scope. Oh, there it is. Put your camera up to the spotting scope. But we saw some that were like at eye level when we're walking through on the rainforest. There are a couple of bridges at the place we stayed. And I'll talk about that. I mean, they were just right there. You're staying in the forest where in the rainforest where you have toucans and it's like 450 some odd species of tropical birds. You've got the largest concentration of scarlet macaws in Central America, and they're just squawking overhead all day long, flying to and from their nesting and feeding areas. There's wild cats. There's like margays and ocelots and jaguars. No, we did not see a jaguar. No, we did not see an ocelot. But we did hear a margay cry. We did hear it at night outside our cabin. And let's see. Of course, there's snakes. There's insects.
Uh-huh.
And there's like, wild pigs. They hang out around down at the beach and root around down there. So, I mean, you kind of have to watch where you're going. But if you want to stay in the rainforest where the monkeys wake you up before dawn and they're outside your cabin, they're outside your little cabina there. I mean, monkeys are not going to come in. The snakes are not knocking at your door. The insects are not swarming your bed. But just be aware that you're in the rainforest. So if you really want to have that, which is what I was looking for, that sort of soaking in the rainforest for 4 or 5 days and nights, where the only sound around you are the insects, the monkeys, the wind moving the trees, the birds calling. The morning chorus of birds goes on for an hour every morning, and it will wake you up at about 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, every morning with the howler monkey. Bats at night swirling around, the stars overhead. Turn off the lights in your cabina. Let your eyes get used to the dark and just look up and look out over the Pacific, which you can see from this ridge where we were staying. Way up the ridge, see the Pacific Ocean out there and get the breeze coming up that steep ridge. And there are freshwater rivers and ravines flowing all around us that we can hear at night. I mean, there was so much to do from, oh gosh, you could kayak. We went rappelling, jungle trekking and rappelling down repeatable different waterfalls. It started out at
Wow.
about 45 or 50 feet and got up to well over 85 feet in length. And I mean, you're
Wow, man.
rappelling through a waterfall. You're in it. The water's pounding on your helmet. You're like, help the rope. But it's fun. It's a little adrenaline excitement,
Yeah.
but it's not like, oh, get me out of here, because this is no let me off the bus. No, it took us an hour to get back here in the rainforest, and we are all going to go down these waterfalls. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. And we actually have an episode out there on waterfall rappelling or canyoneering if you want to learn more about that. But I mean, this sounds like a true adventure, Lynn. I mean, you're waterfall rappelling, you're in the middle of a rainforest, and you're surrounded by macaws and snakes and sloths. I mean, what an adventure.
Absolute adventure. And the thing is, it's not one of those scripted things where you wake up before dawn, which you do anyway, and have some coffee and a light breakfast, and here comes a guide. You've made arrangements the night before or day before, and you pay like $35. It wasn't that much. I'm talking
Okay.
US dollars here. And so here comes your guide. And because we were traveling a shoulder season, and we'll talk about that when we talk about when's the best time to go.
Right, right.
But it was right after the rush, so the rush is over with. The staff is kind of relaxed. The guys are, I don't have to be guiding 5 or 6 people. I only have these 2. And we went,
Right.
okay, great. So we got the guides to ourselves. So we're strolling through the dark rainforest with our headlamps on and flashlights with the howler monkeys screeching overhead. We could not hear ourselves speak. I have a video of it on my YouTube channel and link to it from my blog. It's just like a minute play. It's not a long play at all, but oh my God, you really can't hear anything for these howler monkeys. And they're like following us as we're going through the rainforest, and we're starting on our jungle trek. And by the time the sun is up, way up there above the trees somewhere, we're at the first waterfall. And boy, you are ready to get wet in that cold water, and it is cold. You're like, oh man, phew, what a hike that was.
Uh-huh.
And the guys are there, they're looking out for snakes, they look out for poisonous plants, don't brush up against this, look out there, there's a root right there. And of course, you're watching yourself for yourself.
Mhm.
But to have that kind of really is almost like this catered affair. I mean, we had the place to ourselves. I think there were like 5 other couples there
Wow. Now,
besides us.
what's the name of this place again?
Well, I haven't mentioned it yet, but
Okay. All right.
we stayed not at the 5-star place that's can be up to $800 a night for a cabana. Yeah, couldn't do that. But we did stay at El Remanso. That's EL, one word,
Uh-huh.
and then capital RAM Remanso, or RAMENSO.
Okay.
El Remanso. And that has been recognized by, even since we've been there, and it hasn't been that long, but TripAdvisor, Travel and Leisure,
Mhm.
National Geographic, and several sort of nature programming programs have been out there. Bear Grylls was there a number of years ago,
Wow.
going down the very same waterfalls that we went down. So
Wow.
for whatever that's worth, it was pretty exciting.
That is exciting. So,
Yeah.
how many nights did you stay there? And kind of just take me through a typical day.
We stayed 5 nights and
Mhm.
5 days, but because it didn't take us that long to get there because we chose not to drive from, the city of San Jose, which is where everybody comes in. That's where the international port is.
Uh-huh.
So one flies into the capital of San Jose from somewhere in the United States, and then you can catch a domestic carrier, which you should make your arrangements ahead of time to get a seat on the right flight that you want, and leave plenty of time between your arrival plane from the States and when your flight may depart to the Osa Peninsula. And the airport that is the common airport that people fly into from San Jose is in the town of Puerto Jimenez,
Uh-huh.
spelled with a J, spelled Jimenez with
Uh-huh.
a Z. Puerto Jimenez. And you fly there. It only takes you about 45-50 minutes by air. And it's really luxurious, high
Ooh.
speed Cessna something or other that we flew in. And again, it was just the 2 of us on the plane. I mean, it's like we had this plane high speed thing all to ourselves. Okay, so we landed in Puerto Jimenez probably about early afternoon, midday.
Okay.
And there our hosts were waiting for us, or their staff was waiting with their pickup truck, and kindly moved our luggage into the pickup truck, and we headed for the next hour or so out from Puerto Jimenez, which is
Uh-huh.
on the east side of the peninsula, along the Gulf. There, it's called the Golfo, Golfo, Golfo Dulce, Dulce, Sweetwater,
Mhm.
which has its own story. It's like 600 feet deep, and whales come in there to migrate. It's an amazing place just being there. But anyway, you end up going down this barely graded, hugely potholed, with big rocks in it banging against the undercarriage of this pickup truck. And it's very dusty. It's very dry because we came at the end of the dry season because we didn't want to get rained on the whole time.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was a really rough ride, I have to tell you. If you have a bad back or a bad cervical disc, or it was air conditioned. Our driver
Okay.
was lovely, but it's physically not an easy ride to be riding in
Uh-huh.
that thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got there, and it took us right up to the lodge, El Ramonso Lodge, and checked in, so that we were checked in and settled into our room by 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And then our first night, you have dinner, whatever, settle in, maybe hang out at the pool. They have a beautiful pool up at the main restaurant. And picture this sort of a knob in the forest that's got all these trees on it, this big tall hill that's probably a quarter of a mile from the actual where the Pacific Ocean kisses the edge of the rainforest there. You go up a very steep hill from the beach to get up to the resort if you're going that way. If you're driving in, you drive through this very bumpy, jungly road, and it takes you right into this lovely landscape lodge area. Oh, with little agoutis
Uh-huh.
running around and birds all over the place. And birds of paradise and paradisical birds and insects everywhere and this lovely pool and everybody greeting you in this big, giant, open, huge restaurant space made of all local hardwoods. And oh, it just feels great. And then the restaurant's up at the very peak of the hill, and sort of radiating around it more or less are these different areas where the cabins are, the rooms and the
Uh-huh.
cabinas, you know.
Yeah.
So ours was somewhat down the hill and kind of on the getting a nice view with a big deck out front of it, a view of the Pacific Ocean across the top of the forest canopy. So you can look down and around. You get like a 360 view of the forest canopy. And I mean, everything's there. You can see monkeys in the treetops. You can see toucans flying overhead. As the
Wow.
evening comes on, you can watch the different flocks of birds who are returning to their nesting areas. After you've been there for 4 or 5 nights, you kind of know where the raccoons or quadrumundis hang out.
Mhm.
You know where the
Mhm.
nesting, nearby macaws come from. They come from over there in the morning and go back there in the evening, and they're
Hmm.
calling the whole time. So you wake up before um, sunrise, which you do when you're in the rainforest anyway, when it's hot. It's going to be hot
Mhm.
during the day. And you want to get up early because that's when the wildlife is moving around and the birds are out. And if you have a scheduled activity like, I don't know, waterfall rappelling, or maybe you're going to go zip lining, which is really kind of a treetop tour from one zip line station to the other. There's no screaming people, yelling kids, people whipping out their selfie sticks. It was just the two of us, the two guides,
It's lovely.
with our own little, like a canopy tour one morning, and we got to see birds, and they pointed out the wildlife, and we talked about the trees, and we ate some cheese, and we had some coffee, and we just kind of went from one spot to another, zip lining around in the canopy all around their property. And
Mhm.
just wild. I mean, you're looking down at the floor of the forest, 80 feet below you. You're way the heck up in a tree, up in the top of the canopy, sort of.
Mhm.
So you can see the activity at the top of the canopy, but you can also see the forest turkeys scratching around down there on the forest floor. And you're like,
Mhm.
this is just like being in some primordial Eden. It was just, and the only sounds you hear are the sounds that you're making, your conversation, your zip line going, as you come to a halt. And then you stand on the platform with the guides, and for just a couple of minutes, everybody's quiet and just kind of looking around and enjoying the beautiful morning. Still kind of cool underneath the canopy before the heat of the day. Well, let's move on, go to the
Mhm.
next one. So that was like one day. But then it gets hot about midday, and you're like, okay, we're dying now. We're going to go up to the pool. We're going to
Mhm.
get something to eat.
Yeah.
We're going to chill for the afternoon. And this evening, oh, I know, let's get the guide to take us on this ravine. We'll go down one of these ravines where the river flows, and we'll go just strolling through the middle of the river here at night with our flashlights, and we'll look at snakes and frogs and reptiles and amphibians and beautiful spiders and beetles and anything else we can find. And so we probably spent 2 hours walking around with the guide on that
Wow.
evening excursion, and we saw a snake, a little green snake, a harmless snake, eating
Yeah.
tiny little eggs in a bird nest, and talked with the guide. And yes, we did see a fer de lance, very dangerous snake,
Oh, wow.
but it was a little one, and it
Mhm.
took off when we came, and we could see it in our lights. So that was another, not a typical day, but most days will start before the sunrise if you
Uh-huh.
want to see wildlife, if you want to see the monkeys. And if you want to walk one of many trails on the private property there at El Romanzo, I mean, it's a huge reserve anyway. They have the swinging bridges that kind of go through the forest canopy, and that's where you can spot for first one to spot a sloth gets Coke or something later. I don't know. We'll think of something, iced tea or something. Okay, is that a sloth? No, that's just a bundle of old leaves. Okay, all right, all right. Well, it wasn't moving. I thought it was a sloth. Oh, yeah. So
Wow.
we just spent time out on those trails by ourselves too. Very careful, looking for snakes, trying not to brush up against plants that might irritate our skin,
Right.
staying well hydrated. And then if you get tired of that, well, just go back and relax by the pool or in your cabina, and read a book, just enjoy the heat of the day by chilling. And then you can go have an early dinner, relax some more. You can go out on an evening walk there at dusk and see what little critters are moving around on the lawns around the restaurant there in the pool area. Lots of
Yeah.
critters come up. And it's just a place to really step back into the forest and just enjoy the sounds of the animals around your cabin at night. I mean, I kept hearing something moving around. I kept getting up and get my flashlight. What is it? And it wasn't like, oh, I'm scared. What is that? It's going to eat me. It was like,
Right.
what is it? I want to see what that is. Never could see anything.
It just sounds like an adventure of surprise. You don't know what you're going to see next. And uh, it just sounds like fun. It sounds so much fun.
That's a great description. Yeah, because we didn't know exactly what to expect. But I think the fact that we were there at the time of year that we were, and we basically pretty much had the place to ourselves. Nobody
Mhm.
else was out there on the zip lines or asking the guides to taking them, on a walk through the forest or at night or going down the waterfalls. Other people did, though, do things. A couple of the other couples did like we did, which was take a hike down the hill. Pretty steep hill, better be
Mhm.
fit, get all the way down through the jungle. Probably takes about 35 minutes or so to go downhill, very steep, to the beach. But oh my God, this beautiful jungle path, and there are monkeys along there. You can look out, look overhead, make sure they don't throw stuff down at you, or
Yeah.
worse, tinkle on you.
Right.
Don't do that. Don't tinkle on my head. But we take a little cooler with you, with some ice, and just take a hat and your sunscreen and go down the path and get onto the beach. You have to do it at low tide, and they post the tide times right there up at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And you can walk along this. I got a couple of pictures on my blog, and that I'll share with you. That's just, oh my God, this
Oh,
beach is completely deserted. There's
please,
not
please.
a footprint, nothing. And you can see where the water from the waterfalls and the rivers have formed like freshwater lagoons. It looks like something from a movie set. And we were
Wow.
walking down the beach like for 45 minutes. And I said, I want to see these tide pools. I want to see these beautiful crystal clear tide pools that are exposed when the tide goes out. It's very rocky. And it's like, okay, we got to march way down there to that point. Looks like it's going to take us about half an hour to walk there in the sun and here's the rainforest on our left and the Pacific Ocean on our right. And we're walking down a beach that's probably 300 or 400 feet wide,
Yeah.
sloping pretty severely. And off we go in the sunshine. And suddenly we came upon this lagoon to our left. And I said, oh, let's stop there. I want to rinse off. And
Yeah.
of course, looking around okay, let's make sure there aren't any saltwater crocodiles. No, we're all right because it's strictly freshwater.
Yeah.
It's very shallow, very crystal clear, very quiet back in there, but a nice breeze from the beach. And look around for any snakes. No, there are no snakes because there's just nothing but sand around this. It's just very nice. And just splash down in there and cool off in that thing. Oh, it was wonderful. Fresh water, shade, nice tree to sit on, look out there to the beach, and then proceed on to the tide pools, which are just, again, I think I sent you a picture or two. There are also links in my blog post. My
Hmm.
God, I mean, this is talk about Instagram moments. These are just amazing. You have to have on a pair of shoes though, because
Yeah.
it's really rough rock, but
Uh-huh.
they're great. And people go swimming in the tide pools. Kind of don't cut yourself, but you can
Right.
carefully lower yourself into them and cool off if you want. Me, I just waited and cooled off when we got back to that lagoon on the way back to the jungle path.
Yeah.
But oh, you could spend a morning just doing that, just walking and observing and checking out the tide pools and making sure that you're back to the jungle path before that tide comes in, because
Hmm.
that tide is massive. And it almost caught us when we came back well, it did catch us. Caught us up to our waist and kind of squeezed us up against the wall of the jungle when
Hmm.
we were coming back from our waterfall adventure. It was kind of scary there for a minute. We and the guys, the two of us and the two guys were like, okay, time it. Get ready, set, go. Run across the sand and it's wet and it's soft and your feet are slipping. You're not going anywhere. And you're like, this is a nightmare. Oh
Yeah.
no, here goes the wave. Kablam. Boy, I sure am glad I had my phone and my camera in that dry bag because I just got soaked by that. Okay, that wave went away. Hold on to a root here to keep it from sucking you back. And then, okay, now get ready, go. Sprint again and finally make it to the path. And we were like, man, that was sketch, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but what fun.
Really?
Well, I would love to talk about some logistics here.
Okay.
You mentioned there is a best time to go to the Osa Peninsula. What is that best time?
And I would recommend this in general for Costa Rica travel,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be in the dry season. Now, the height of season is December through April.
Okay.
So we went in early, no, sorry, March, April. December through February is really the height of season. So that's when your airfares will be up. That's when your accommodation costs will be higher and fewer, fewer
Uh-huh.
selection and choices. Because it's a dry season, nobody wants to be in the tropics when it's raining on your head every day. I mean,
Right.
pouring buckets. So I chose for us to go in the first couple of weeks of March. And I always try to time going into Central American countries before the Easter rush as well. I try to
Mm-hmm.
get in and get out before the week before Easter because, again, the prices will go up. A lot of locals are taking time off at the Easter holiday, and they like to, go to their places in their country and visit them and stay as well. So I find that the dry season is best. It's not too hot in early March.
Mm-hmm.
And it does get hot during the day. I mean, you are in the tropics. If you're not up in the mountainous
Mm-hmm.
areas, further north, like the cloud rainforest, it can get up to around 90 degrees, certainly the 80s.
Okay.
But on that area of the peninsula, Osa Peninsula, you've got the breezes coming from the Pacific side all the time because you're basically facing the Pacific Ocean, even though you're well up a hill and in the rainforest. So there are nice breezes to keep you cool. So that's when we chose to go. And if you're going to spend a couple of weeks in Costa Rica, whether you're driving around, up around east and west, north and south, or if you go down to the Osa Peninsula and want to spend a week or 5 days like we did, I would say that's a pretty good time to go. And the
Yeah.
rates just get off of the high season rate structure.
Mm-hmm.
So your rates will be a little less for your accommodations.
And so while we're on the topic of rates, how much should you really be budgeting for this trip? I mean, I know it can swing high or low, but on average, the cost that you paid for like that Cessna flight, your accommodations, and average costs of a meal, and that sort of thing.
Well, of course, your direct flight from the United States will depend upon your origin, or
Sure.
where you're coming out of, and what your direct flight price is and the time of year that you go. And you can just look into what those prices are because some people choose to go in February and they're going to pay more than we paid when we went there. And we also use our points because we're frequent travelers.
Mm-hmm.
So the costs that we paid are going to be less than just, paying a full up retail price
Sure.
for your direct flight. But there are numerous direct flights from the United States in various places
Uh-huh.
take you right directly into San Jose. So that helped us quite a bit. We could jump on a plane in the morning here in Atlanta, which is where we're located,
Mm-hmm.
and be into San Jose by 11 o'clock local time, latest,
Lovely.
30, something like that. It's not that much time in the air, about 3 hours in the air. So that cost, I mean, I could quote what we paid if I can remember what we paid. It was probably around 550 or something akin to
Okay.
that. But it can, if you hit a deal, you can pay a lot less, or you can pay a lot more if you're just not able to find a good deal.
Okay.
And then
Then your
you're
flight from San Jose to get to the Osa Peninsula, about how
in,
much should you budget for that?
yes. So those, depending on the airline that you take, but they're not going to be very different. Those domestic carriers, and there are several. There are
Uh-huh.
three right now. That right now today there are three domestic carriers that will fly out of San Jose and take you directly into Puerto Jimenez in about 45 or 50 minutes, and that's $240 per person round trip.
Okay.
Not too bad. Just a
Mhm.
little note there is watch your luggage limits, watch your weight limits, pay
Mhm.
attention to the details that they have on their websites because some of the smaller planes are going to limit how much luggage you bring, or you'll have to pay for the overweight charge.
Right. Right. Now, about how much were you paying per night?
So the cost to stay at El Remanso can range depending on your season. If you're high season or shoulder season as we were, you could get a lovely garden view room for about $135 per night. That's double occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could go all the way up to a deluxe villa with a plunge pool. And that goes at high season for about $410 per night. And the way that pricing is, that is no meals included. We chose to go the a la carte route for meals. We did request each day, you sort of put in your menu requests for breakfast, lunch, and dinner kind of a thing. And you could eat as lightly as you wanted to, which is what we usually do in that tropical heat. We just don't want to eat a lot of, food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the meals there are a la carte, and the different prices and so forth are on the El Remanso site.
Mm-hmm.
So, it can range from, 35, 45, 55, 65, maybe that high
Okay.
at night. But we don't, for a full-on dinner,
Mm-hmm.
we just don't eat a lot.
Right.
We eat very light, and we eat a lot of protein bars too, just to kind of have little meals during the day.
Sure.
But there's a lot of information on the El Remanso site that tells you about the cost of their tours, their different accommodations. And when I spoke to the owners at the time when we were there, it wasn't that long ago. Like I said, it's only been a couple of years maximum. But anyway, I was chatting with the owner. What a nice fellow. He and his wife are just really nice couple. And he said he
Uh-huh.
accommodated 30 people. And this is really a small resort. It's an eco resort. It's
Mm-hmm.
been designed to recycle everything.
I love that.
And, they're very ecologically responsible there. And it's not easy for the logistics to keep that resort going and get stuff in. You can't
Yeah.
fly. You can't bring a boat in. The only way in and out of that entire area is going down that awful road. But the awful road is what keeps the crowds away. That's
Yeah.
why this place is just so undeveloped, besides the fact that it's national park around you. But even these private reserves, they're just tough to get to.
Yeah.
So you really need to plan ahead of time if you have any food, limitations in your diet or any special things to work around. They'll work with you with that. You get free juices, fresh squeezed juice all day long, water. There's ice water always up at the bar, up in the
Uh-huh.
restaurant. You can get ice for your little cooler if you just want to go down to the beach and chill for the afternoon. If you want to ask them to make you a couple of light sandwiches or something for a picnic down on the beach, they're happy to do it. They're really very accommodating because they just don't deal with crowds there.
Yeah. Now, as far as getting around, did you need a rental car while you were there?
Absolutely not. In fact, I felt that would be more of a detriment because I knew that we were going to stay at the lodge and that we
Uh-huh.
were going to avail ourselves of the guides and their knowledge base and I knew it's like you're in the zoo and the animals are all around you.
Right.
You don't have to drive anywhere to see what we came to see and to be steeped in the environments we came to be steeped in because it was right there. All
Mm-hmm.
you had to do was do quite a bit of hiking up and down hills. We really had to be fit and get ready for this. But that's true of Costa Rica. It's very much an up and down country,
Right.
unless you're
Right.
surfing.
As far as gear needed for these excursions, this sort of thing, what did you pack in your suitcase to prepare you for this terrain?
I generally prepare to bring the same sort of things when I'm in the tropics anyway, because we do quite a bit of hiking and we knew that we were going to be rappelling down waterfalls, for instance, and walking in water up to, our ankles, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
our shins. So I wore a pair of, we brought our hiking boots. We also bring hiking sandals, really strong ones that give you a very strong toe support and
Yeah.
protection, heels, but that can give you good grip on rocks so that if you're walking on a slippery river bed or if you're going down a waterfall. So we had both sort of dry boots and wet boots, so to speak. And those sandals are very handy to take out on the beach too. You want to protect your feet because that beach sand is very coarse. It's not like fine powdery sand. And it slips a lot under your feet. Squeak, squeak.
Yeah.
And the usual, your Cool Max, very lightweight clothing. Don't carry a lot of clothes because you'll be in and out of your clothes a lot. You'll be getting wet. You'll be sweaty. We rinsed our stuff off and washed our things in the tub. We're used to doing that, and hung them out in the room, with a couple of clothespins that we carry with us. So our tropical adventuring gear includes that lightweight clothing, your head protection, keep your head in the shade. And, we might wear ball caps or something like that if we're going out on the trails, just so we have peripheral vision, and it just protects the top of our head from anything falling on it or whatever, the sunshine, out in the sun. We do carry Benadryl and insect and plant reaction sort of sprays after bite, that sort of thing, in case you brush up against a plant. Um, let's see, we always have a little emergency kit just in case you get a splinter in your hand or something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, you always take all your medications. Make sure to take extra sunglasses and spectacles if you drop your sunglasses when you're waterfall rappelling, which you don't need them when you're rappelling anyway, because you're in the dim light of the rainforest, but
Yeah.
really don't take them back in there at all. Sunscreen. A cooling neckerchief if you it can get awfully hot when you're hiking, especially, and you're out of the breeze, so you might want one of those cooling neckerchiefs that you just dip in water and kind of wave around in the air.
Yeah.
We also take hiking back pads. They're very easy to pack and they don't take up a lot of room, but when you're out in the boonies, anywhere out on an island or in the rainforest in Costa Rica, or even some of the more rural areas in Costa Rica and other places we visited, they just have basically a platform bed with a mattress on top. And those mattresses can be thin. That's where your price per night can go up. If you want a 5-inch mattress or something,
Right.
you're going to pay a little more. So we always bring our back pads, and we always travel with flashlights, backup batteries for, like a mini mag, a very strong LED flashlight, backup batteries for that. You just want to have that beside your bed at night anyway, and carry it with you as you go up to the restaurant in the dim light of the afternoon, so that you can light your way, even though the paths are beautifully lit with just nice little tiki lights, but you just want a little more light. And we have backup phone and camera, electronics, no problem with electrical current down there, no problem with plugs, but you just want to have your backup systems you can charge in your room or have backup batteries as you need. And we always carry a dry bag or two, especially if you're going to do something like waterfall rappelling. A special camera if you have a small one that you want to take, or your phone. Use your phone camera. You will want to put that in a dry bag and make sure it's kind of protected from getting banged around. And you'll want to figure out how to get that dry bag either slung over your shoulder or hung from your safety belt that you're going to be wearing while you're rappelling, because you put on that safety gear as you leave the lodge, and you will have it on your body until you get back to the lodge and they remove it from you. So there are carabiners hanging off of that, but you don't want to carry more than you need to carry when you do something like a rainforest hike, or canyoneering, or going rappelling. Certainly, you want to travel light, but make sure you have a working dry bag, a small one.
Perfect.
And bring your own snacks. You can't find any snacks. There are no convenience stores, no ATMs. Wi-Fi is very limited, except at the restaurant. This is fairly common throughout the Caribbean, the Pacific Rim, just islands. You'll get some Wi-Fi, but you usually don't get it unless you're really up at the restaurant or the office area. And we also brought binoculars so we could see those birds and sloths way up there in the treetops. Or if you're a birder, you might want to bring your spotting scope. Yeah, those are just some of the things that we try to put on our list as we prepare to pack.
Yeah. And did you need any special permits to go there?
No.
Now, as far as your passport, I've read that some countries need at least 6 months left on your passport before it renews. Was that the case for Costa Rica?
Yeah, that's pretty SOP everywhere these days, isn't it? So,
yeah,
unfortunately, if you're like us, so our passports are always going to expire in the middle of our trip somewhere.
I know. We are going to have to renew
lose
ours.
Months of value on the cost of our passport, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Now, could you bring children on this trip?
Sure. I think children, they're certainly welcome there. They don't have any special accommodations for them. It's not like an all-inclusive, kids eat free kind of place.
Right.
I would say that it's very much an adult adventure, nature photographer, nature outdoors kind of place. It's very quiet. People are respectful. The whole idea is to be, enjoying the rainforest sounds. I would say children need to be, and I think they might even have something on their website, but I can't remember, at least the age of 12. And frankly, if they're not comfortable in hot, sticky, muggy, humid, buggy, possibly sneaky environments, they may not have a good time because the place does not cater particularly to children or families. They really cater to the outdoors, nature loving enthusiast.
Yeah. And as far as like mobility, I know you're out hiking and trekking. But there's some people who may have limited mobility, but they want to experience the rainforest and the nature. Could they get that rainforest experience by staying there? Or is it necessary to go on the treks to see the monkeys and the sloths and the parrots?
The trip in is arduous. Just getting physically from Puerto Jimenez
Hmm.
down to that section of the Osa Peninsula, the southwest tip, is there. Like I said, there's really only one quote road, and
Right.
it is hard. It's hard travel, so you have to deal with that. And then I didn't notice any ramps or any other particular considerations for those who were differently abled at that particular lodge because it is perched at the top of a volcanic ridge
Okay.
and it's very steep all around. They have wonderfully sort of manicured, rocky, loose rock paths
Yeah.
that radiate out from the central reception and restaurant area down to the different cabinas, but they're all quite steep. They're slippery when you walk on them with hiking boots on.
Okay.
So there are no smooth surfaces that would accommodate, somebody with a cane or anything really. And it's tough. You really need to be very fit there and accustomed to heat and humidity.
Okay.
So yeah, it's physically demanding environment.
So I'm going to do a little research and see if I can find any places in the Osa Peninsula with like an ADA friendly room. And if I do find that, I will include it in the show notes on experiencesyoushouldhave.com. Uh,
Awesome.
yeah. And finally, what are some of those other things that someone should check out while on the Osa Peninsula? What are some of the top hits that people should hit up?
Well, if you were to Google it or take a look around what other things to do, there's Canyo, Canyo Island, which is world renowned pretty much for a snorkeling and scuba diving destination. It's about an hour off the coast,
Yeah.
Pacific coast of the Osa Peninsula. You can Google. There are a couple of places you can catch a boat early in the morning and
Uh-huh.
take about an hour ride in a boat out to Canyo Island and join a group of folks that are snorkeling, and I believe they also have diving excursions that go out there.
Great.
And so that's, we thought about that too, but we were just so tired from all the hiking we'd done. We went, no. But this is considered to be the premier, one of the premier, probably the premier place to snorkel off of Costa Rica,
Okay.
right there, that Canyo Island. And as you go up further up the peninsula, there are some just awesome places to go mangrove kayaking or sea kayaking.
Mhm.
And you could make arrangements from, if you're staying at El Romanzo or, other places on the peninsula, you can make various arrangements to go kayaking either on the Gulf side of the peninsula or the ocean side. And that means you're kayaking up the rivers that are flowing down to the ocean.
Yeah.
Remember, this is absolutely wild. There's nothing out there but you and the guide and saltwater crocodiles. So, and
Yeah.
maybe pumas. So, you can't go. I don't go without a guide.
Okay.
But there's also whale and dolphin watching, whale watching at the correct times of year, which would not necessarily be in early March when we were there in the Gulf. And that could be arranged out of Puerto Jimenez and a couple of other towns over
Yeah.
on the Gulf side. So you can get out in a boat and go whale watching, dolphin watching, mostly out of Drake Bay, which is up in the northern area, sort of the peninsula.
Okay.
Surfers like to go to Playa Matalpo, and that's Mata. I mispronounced it. Playa Matapalo. That's
Matapalo.
Playa Beach, and that's spelled Matapalo.
Okay.
That's sort of the town area, the community that El Romanzo and a couple of other lodges in the southwest portion of the peninsula. that whole area is referred to as the Matapalo. And from there, you can go deep sea fishing. You
Uh-huh.
can go surfing there too. And you could also have a day at the beach, just a different beach, sort of a easy, no hard surf, no big tide coming in kind of an experience along the beach there. And ultimately, the ultimate activity that is mentioned very much in lots of articles, I guess, the
Uh-huh.
travel articles that I've read, is hiking Corcovado National Park. You can make arrangements. You can actually fly into the park. You can stay there in kind of bunk-like arrangements. You go out with the guides and the park rangers and experience the park from within the park. But remember, where we were staying, we had the same forest with the same animals all around us. And
Mm-hmm.
we had guides available to us every day. So that's another reason we didn't need a car. We didn't have to drive anywhere or go anywhere to experience what we had come to enjoy.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. Now, one last question is, will the Osa Peninsula be empowered by tourism or overrun by it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's one that was brought up in my conversations with the owner. He talked about himself and other owners of other lodges who were the very first to build lodges in this area, and the only ones really in this area of the Osa Peninsula, and getting together with other people and communities on the peninsula to battle big business interests. Because over the years, and one can find articles about these things, over the years, this area is pristine,
Uh-huh.
untouched. This is nature unscripted here. And it's really paradisical. But of course, people want to come in and do things like build an international airport. What? An
Wow.
international airport? A massive marina at one point and this is like several years. These things are planned and fought and then delayed, and then they come up again. And you got to, it's like whack-a-mole, right? This massive marina was planned, and another huge resort. I mean, sprawling, just sprawling. So even though Corcovado National Park is sort of takes up a big chunk of that footprint of the peninsula, it's not by any stretch of the imagination the entire peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
And there's quite a bit of development that's already been created on that peninsula. And not everybody is participating equally, the people who live there, in the development that has occurred to date on the peninsula. So it's the usual, it's difficult. It's a dichotomy. It's a pull between the needs of the locals for jobs and income, and taking advantage of the tourist industry and how they too can benefit, and frankly, the greed of big business and others who just want to come in and just take it and turn it into another Cancun.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's something to be aware about and to, I know, help get behind environmental efforts there.
Absolutely. And I think by staying at it's not an ecologically minded, this is the word of ecology. This is the
Yeah.
epitome of an eco resort when you stay at a place like El Romanzo, and by no means are they the only lodge there that really has the heart and the soul and the vision to have come when they came and to continue to fight off interests that are not in perhaps the better interest of the natural surroundings of this
Yeah.
beautiful paradise.
Wow. Well, truly, Lynn, thank you for coming on the show today and really shining a light on this beautiful paradise in Costa Rica. You already have my wheels spinning of how we can make an adventure happen there. And I will be including more information on experiencesyoushouldhave.com as well as photos from your trip there. Is there anything else you'd like to add for our listeners today?
I would say if you're going to go, like other places in the world, they're being discovered too quickly.
Yes.
Go soon. Go soon.
Okay. Go soon. Okay, listeners out there, you've got to start planning an adventure of a lifetime. And Lynn, again, truly thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
It is totally my pleasure, Gail. Thank you so much. And once again, I just stay tuned to your podcasts. Every time they go up, I'm looking and I'm following. So I'm right there and trying to spread the word to other people as well. So thank you. It's been my pleasure all the way.
Thank you, Lynn, truly. Thank you so much for listening to Experiences You Should Have, your how-to guide for amazing experiences. And if you haven't gotten the gist of the show, it is exploring unique off-the-beaten-path experiences around the world and giving you the how-to guide to make it happen. We walk through costs, skills needed, best time to go, where to stay, what to do for you to have an amazing experience and to just fall back in love with this beautiful planet that we live in and give you a roadmap on how to get there. And so you know how much you need to save, how much time can be left on your passport, etc. If you love this show and you're an Apple user, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Highly appreciated. Also, we are trying to grow this podcast, and if you could tell your friend or at least one new person this week about this podcast, you would be doing me a fabulous favor. And if you have a unique experience around the world that you would like to share that can be replicated, then I want to hear from you. Go to experiencesyoushouldhave.com, click on contact, send me a note. Also, while you're there, go check out the show notes under episodes. We have beautifully written up articles for each episode containing links, more information, photos, everything that you would want to know and more. And if I don't provide the answer, there are links to other places with the answer to really give you that complete view of the experience. And it is my goal to get you outside or inside, but on an adventure and to experience this beautiful freaking world that we live in, because we're not meant to just sit behind a desk every day. Yes, I understand it pays the bills and there's definitely some interesting things to be had at a desk. However, it's good for you to take a break and jaunt off on a really cool adventure. You don't have to quit your job or go travel for years to go have an adventure. While that does also sound amazing, you can take a week off or two and have an adventure of a lifetime. And if you start to scatter them out throughout the year or every year or every other year, you're always going to have something fun to look forward to, an adventure that you will share with your family, your friends, your kids, your grandkids, or your dog, your fish, or, I mean, you don't have to tell anybody about the adventure, but it would be really cool and it would be an amazing story that's part of you. And I just urge you to get out there and try something new and to go see a new animal or go trek in an unknown area of the world after you've done your research by listening to Experiences You Should Have and also checking out the website. But I'm here to help provide that information, and that's the biggest mission behind this podcast. So please share the podcast. If you're on Instagram, find us by Experiences Podcast and check out the show notes on experiencesyoushouldhave.com. I want to hear from you if you were inspired to go do one of these experiences, or if you want to add some color to a new experience I should know about. Please hit me up. And until next time on our next adventure.